over on the release coming up of Madden 25, of course, made a lot of noise over with EA Sports with the college game finally released after 14 years without it. But the idea now is more and more players look at this and look at their rankings and start to realize as the games become more realistic all the time, these rankings kind of matter enough that even the NFL thinks about it. And for the upcoming Madden, the new cornerback rankings are out today. And Pat Surtain comes in. PS2 comes in at number 3, behind only Jalen Ramsey and Sauce Gardner. Obviously, these players rated on a 1 to 99 scale. I say 1 to 99. It's really like 60 to 99. If anyone was a 1, I mean, forget it. But Jalen Ramsey comes up at a 97. Sauce Gardner, 96. Pat Surtain, 95. Follow him, Jair Alexander, 93. Charvarius Ward at 91. That's your top 5. I don't have any problem with that. That sounds about right. And it shows.
Oh, I do.
You do?
Hell yeah, I got a problem
Really?
with it. How is Sauce Gardner is a great player. Is a phenomenal player.
Are you going to tell me that Surtain should be ahead of Sauce Gardner?
I'm going to tell you that.
I look forward to hearing this because I'm going to tell you then why he shouldn't. But go ahead.
Here's the thing, man. Sauce Gardner, and I'm not trying to be, Mr. Twitter tangent guy that I see all these arguments on Twitter. This reeks of East Coast bias. This absolutely
East Coast bias is
reeks.
Real. It is real.
It reeks. I mean, here's the thing.
I can tell you as an ESPN guy for
we
years.
were using the T-word technicality. I think fundamentally, all things considered, I think Patrick Surtain is the best cornerback in the NFL. I think he does everything at an extremely high level, and he does it cleanly. I have seen Sauce Gardner tug on jerseys left and right. I've seen Sauce Gardner play bump and run coverage and not get called for pass interference when he should get called for pass interference. I love me some Jalen Ramsey as well, so maybe that's where it's a little bit more different to me. Here's what I will say. For Sauce Gardner to be 2 percentage points higher than Patrick Surtain, I don't think that's valid. Sauce Gardner comes in at a 97. Patrick Surtain comes in at a 96. I think if anything, one skill point should be the difference in the separation between those two guys. I think Sauce Gardner has been set up for success with the Jets and Robert Saleh playing a little bit more aggressively on defense. And again, everybody loves the New York sports fan, and the New York sports media can't get enough of this guy. And here's what I'll say. If you put Sauce Gardner on the Broncos and Patrick Surtain on the Jets, I think you'd see Patrick Surtain at the top of the list.
You could make that argument, I think. I think that is fair, but I'll tell you why I think it is reversed. Because the way that the NFL defenses function now, and I agree, Surtain is a better technical cornerback. In fact, I think he's got the best technique in the entire league, and I think he's right there with Ramsey. I have no problem with Ramsey being number 1. Ramsey, to my mind, is still the one guy
Ramsey's
you look
number
at.
2.
Pardon me. That's kind of
Gardner 1, Ramsey 2, Surtain 3.
Okay, well, that's funny. I'm looking over at
this is from the Madden page itself.
How about that? Okay, then a little bit off here is funny because Madden had a couple pages about it, but who knows? Either way, well, they're in the situation there with Ramsey, who I think is still the best of the bunch. But
Madden's already in mid-season form.
Here's the difference, right? Yeah, here is the difference with Gardner and why I think he's a slightly better corner, because defense today now looks at generating turnovers as the most important thing. The way the rules are structured, it's very hard to stop offenses in between the 20s. It's just built that way, right? And I think Gardner, because of the fact that he locks his guy down more or less as well as Surtain. I get that the tug, everybody tugs. I'll agree Gardner gets away with it a little more than some, but Surtain tugs as well.
It's blatant with Sauce, though, but I digress.
It can be. I get that. But the difference is Gardner is more of a ball hawk and is more likely to get you an interception and a game-changing play. Surtain limits the offense, but the ball hawking has been predominantly Justin Simmons' domain. Simmons is no longer here. The question is, can Surtain start making picks and turn the ball the other way? For the Broncos defense to make a leap into the top 10, they've got to generate more turnovers than they have in recent years. And that has to come from interceptions. And I think that has to come from Surtain, because until and unless they have a guy opposite them that really, really is difficult to throw again, and maybe Levi Wallace will be that. He's a veteran that's well regarded around the league, not a superstar guy, but a good, solid corner. If he plays a regular, good, solid corner position, then maybe that helps keep people away from Surtain, and it's a little more forgiving. Teams did not stay away from throwing against Patrick Surtain last year. They didn't. They did still try to stay away throwing from Sauce Gardner. And that's because they're afraid of the game-changing play, the pick six, the kind of play that could happen there. And I don't think the league has that fear about Surtain. They're worried about throwing incompletions, but they're not worried about Surtain taking it the other way. And that's the difference. That the higher end of what Gardner can do, Gardner can go out there and win you a game from the cornerback position. I haven't really seen that Pat Surtain will do that yet. We're talking about nitpicking between the top three corners in the league, but I do think that's the difference.
I think it's a fair point.
I want to see Surtain add that to his game.
I think it's a fair point. I personally, I almost think of like the Champ
By the way,
Bailey
don't get me wrong. He's the best player on the Denver Broncos.
Oh,
and it's
no,
not even
without
close.
a doubt. No, without a doubt.
But if you're looking for somewhere to go, a little headroom, it's go get that ball.
No, I don't disagree with you. The age-old question for me is, if I was starting a franchise tomorrow, which one am I choosing? And I like the ability in Surtain to, and here's the other thing, and maybe this obviously isn't going to factor into the ratings. I just like the way that Pat goes about his business. I like that he's a professional. It seems like there's a little drama. There's always, a little diva-ness, I feel like, with Sauce Gardner. I just think body of work, well-roundedness, I think Patrick Surtain is the more consistent player on NFL Sundays.
And I think when you look at the stylistic difference, and that's always fascinating with corners, right? Because that's been that way forever. Let's take Champ Bailey and Deion Sanders, right? Obviously, both Hall of Famers, both tremendous corners. Sanders, obviously, mouthy, showy, in your face. Obviously he's been that way his whole playing career. Bailey was kind of, I just go do my job. When the game's over, I just kind of say I did my job. I locked a guy down. But Bailey did all that, and he was a ball hawk. He got picks to the point where at the a big chunk of his career, teams just decided I'm not even risking it over there. Until teams stopped risking it against Pat Surtain. And Bailey didn't always have an elite guy on the other side. I think that's the difference. But I think you can do it either way. And I get the point, because it depends on what kind of team you want and how you want to coach it. You don't have to do a lot of coaching of Pat Surtain. He's self-motivated. Like. He's a self-starter. Yep. You know the technique's going to be good. Everything that you're looking at when you're clicking boxes on this, can this guy do this? Surtain checks every single one of those boxes. Everything. He can do everything. And I think including go get the ball. He did have 4 interceptions in his rookie season. So I think that's a possibility there. But if you were to say Champ Bailey was better than Deion Sanders or Deion Sanders was better than Champ Bailey, you can have that opinion, but it's hard to say either way because they played the game in a different style, but both were easily lock Hall of Famers. And I think when you look at Gardner and Surtain, it's stylistic, but maybe it depends on the kind of team you're coaching. For Sean Payton, I will give you this. I think Sean Payton would rather have a Pat Surtain all day long because he doesn't want a lot of drama on his football team.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And that's where it comes down to personal preference, right? This is like splitting hairs at the end of the day. Both Patrick Surtain, Jalen Ramsey,
every team in the league would
Gardner.
take any of those 3 guys.
Yeah.
Every team.
It's, different strokes for different folks. You know, what do you like in your cornerbacks? What do you keep an eye on? And personally, I think to your point, like Patrick Surtain reminds me of the kid, growing up that just knows how to do his homework on time, knows how to clean the dishes, and goes to bed when he needs to, right? Versus Sauce Gardner, like maybe he's got some more upside or whatever it might be. And the jury's still out on these guys. What is this, year 4 for Patrick Surtain?
Yeah. I mean, it is. This will be year 4. So 3 for Gardner.
That's the other thing is I think that there's still some progression, and like the jury's still out in regards to, maybe this year, right now, is Sauce Gardner a better player on paper? Sure, you can make that argument. I think you've made a strong one, but I do think the body of work when it's all said and done, I just love the upside of a guy like Patrick Surtain, who I think has already solidified himself as one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. And I think to your point, have we seen maxed out Sauce Gardner? How much better can Sauce Gardner get at this point in his career versus I think a guy like Patrick Surtain has plenty of room to improve, despite the fact that he's already the 3rd or 2nd best cornerback in the NFL with what he's accomplished with that room to blossom.
And that's a good point, because I do wonder in Gardner's case, because he was so explosive and dangerous and talky. And yes, he played on the Jets, and that's an unquestioned advantage when it comes to getting attention. You are right. When you talk about the reality of playing on the East Coast, you will get attention where other folks won't necessarily get attention. And Gardner's, talkative and flashy. And so, he's going to get the attention. But you're right. I actually do feel that if they reach their sort of maximum evolution, Surtain or Gardner, I think Surtain would be the better corner. Yeah. I do. But I want to see him get there. And I think he's going to have to, because if teams are going to throw his way, if they're not going to avoid him, you're going to have to take a couple away. The Broncos are going to need it. You talked about it with the defensive line not that long ago. This Denver Broncos offense, when you look at it, can you look at that and say they will score 24 points a game all year long? I don't think so.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't think so. And if that's the case, the defense is going to, 1, have to keep the opponents low in score. And 2, I think they're going to have to turn this ball over and give that offense some short fields. And In Surtain's case, unless if they're, I would put it this way: if he doesn't have a lot of picks because all year long they're staying away from him entirely. Okay, I get that. And then we're going to have a very different conversation. But as long as teams aren't avoiding him, and last year when you look at the distribution of passes, they weren't avoiding him. They weren't afraid to throw at Pat Surtain. They weren't so afraid that they were going to shut off half the field and make their offense more predictable. Because that's the goal, right?
Right.
When you had Champ Bailey, basically half the field, you knew the offense was not really going to test it.
Right.
And when you're defending that makes your life a lot easier, right? When you're only defending half the field, it's twice as easy.
Right.
But in Surtain's case, you're still seeing the pass distribution go there as often as the other side. And so that's showing that offenses aren't afraid to go that way and still want to use the whole width of the field. In Gardner's case, I think by the end of the year, we were seeing that a lot of teams were just deciding to avoid it like they do with Jalen Ramsey and have half the field. And it made the Jets defense maybe look a little better than it did. So for me, that's what Surtain needs to do. But finding someone opposite of him and then making sure there is depth. I think Jaquan McMillan obviously looked really, really good. He's the guy in the slot. We'll see if Chris Abrams-Drain, who has a lot of ability in the slot, can step up. I like the cornerback room.
Yes.
Surtain, Wallace, Moss, Abrams-Drain, McMillan. Damari Mathis is still here and still has room to grow. I like what they've got, but you and I talked about this a little bit yesterday as well. Until you say that they're going to be successful, you have to see them have success.
Yep.
Abrams-Drain's a rookie. Riley Moss had an injury and barely got into, not as many games as you'd like as a rookie last year. Mathis looked great as a rookie and then got exposed last year opposite of Surtain. If Wallace was looking like a Pro Bowler, he probably would have never left Pittsburgh. So there's less to prove there for Wallace, but there's still a little bit to prove. And so I think for the Broncos, there's a lot of that with this, right? We've talked about it with the wide receivers. There's a lot of talent on these units, but they need to turn promise into production because promise eventually gets people fired. You have to produce. And Sean Payton is safe. Sean Payton's not going anywhere. Sean Payton makes $20 million and runs this team stem to stern. But he's made it pretty clear, you either produce or I'll find someone else who can. So for the Broncos, the talent acquisition is good. I want to start seeing that turn up. And I'll be honest with you. We've talked about not overrating a single practice, and I think that's still important.
Yep.